Woo! You are looking live at the GovCast from South Florida. Early February. Super Bowl's over. Here we go. Football song, Steve, whether you like it or not.
No more football. What are we going to do every Sunday?
Thank God.
Look at that. Look, thank God. Thank God.
She's like, I got more time with my fiance now.
Why thank God?
Now I can put on Law and Order if I want to.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do with all your time now?
I mean, I didn't spend that much time watching it anyway.
There's something about Law and Order. Look, funny you said that. There's something like that's on like there's some stat where it's on all the time.
USA. It's on every Sunday.
But at 24 hours a day, if you ever want to watch a Law and Order, you know, because there's like 7 versions of it, it's on. It's always on or something. There's some weird TV stat where it's on all the time. So
literally.
Weird. Stephen Bryan, introduce yourself for the 2 people that don't know you.
Hey, everybody, those 2 people that don't know me, my name is Stephen Bryan, the Dean of GovSales University. Always a pleasure to be here, Jack.
Dre.
Hi, Andrea. Good to see everybody. I think everybody knows me, but if you don't, nice to meet you.
The brains in this operation.
Smart one.
Right Jack Sadi, great to see you. You might not know this. This was the first time all 3 of us have been live on the go in 2021 together in one forum. So we've done a lot of this last 6-7 weeks have been a little different for us. We were taping shows and traveling the country and avoiding COVID. So it's been crazy. So thank you for coming today. We have a special guest, Ryan Reisert. He will be here talking about how do you get leads? How do you build your pipeline? Has a vast experience living out in California, doing great things in the sales world. So super blessed to have him on today. I think you will love the things he has to say. So we're going to help you build your pipeline, get your year going. We're already 1 month in. And so before we get to that, if you have any comments or things during the show, put them down there. We'll get to them. And so, Stevie B, I think you have something coming up also this month you would like to tell people?
Well, we got Valentine's Day.
Oh, no, that's Dre's. That's Dre's. No, I cancel. Forget it. Dre, do Valentine's Day first. Go ahead. Steve, you're canceled. Go ahead, Dre.
I think it's sweet. And I was talking with somebody this morning about it, and she was saying, you know, when you're in the office, you're so used to seeing like hearts and flowers and, you know, stuff that makes most people feel good unless you have a black heart. But it's all like nice stuff. And now, because everyone's from home, you know, that warm and fuzzy isn't as much there.
That's true. We got to get warm and fuzzy this weekend. Valentine's Day is what? I think Saturday, Sunday, right? Over the weekend. So
it's Sunday. Do you have plans with your wife?
I will. It's only the 10th. I don't know if you know how our gender works, but there's 4 days between that. I got plenty of time.
They sell heart-shaped ribeye at Publix if you don't want to go out.
Heart-shaped ribeye.
Check.
Got that done.
Well, I will say for Valentine's Day, I hit 2 birds with 1 stone. So my wife's birthday is actually today. And
Whoa.
got her a gift certificate to the spa for the facial treatment or whatever. So I said, this is a birthday / Valentine's Day.
You combine them? She lets you?
Yeah, a spa day. Come on.
Some women, for example, like if they're near Christmas, their birthdays, they said absolutely not. You separate. I've got a birthday and I've got Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas is like a real holiday, I would say. Valentine's Day is just kind of some flowers and chocolates. Hallmark holiday. Hallmark holiday.
Your wife lets you group her birthday and Valentine's Day in one gift?
Yeah.
Oh, we got to talk to her. That's a major ripoff. No. Dre, get on the horn. Get on the horn, Steven's wife. All right, so that's coming up first. The 14th, V-Day, doing it. And then, Steve, after that, what do you got going on?
All of us are going to be there because we're going to have a webinar about building relationships. So I was going to segue with Valentine's Day into building relationships. Oh, I love that little heart there.
There you go.
So everybody that tunes in next Wednesday, we're going to be doing it at the same time, 12 noon Eastern.
Oh, it is, yeah. Next week.
So it's on the 17th. And it's all about building relationships. When it comes to selling to the government, it's so important to form those connections. You know, what agencies should you focus on? Who do you contact at the agency? When do you contact them? How do you contact them? So it's going to be just an in-depth, you know, taking course content from GovSales University and just sharing some tips and tricks with you to help you form those relationships to win government deals.
Oh, yeah, that's what I forgot. It's actually next week during this time slot. So can you guys put the link back up below? Look, if you just go next week, you'll have to register to hit that thing up. But if somebody could put the link back, there you go. So there's a link, the webinar. That's one of our best ones, literally talking about, hey, because it's a lot of subtleties. Like it's almost like if you've ever taken one of those when you go to like, we don't have many more. Remember those networking things? They'd be like, go and networking, and everyone you go and they're just trying to give you their business card and sell you something. It's like one of those, like how to do that with the government, because that normally all that stuff doesn't work with the government, and especially during COVID, none of that's working now. So I think that'll be one of our best really webinars we've ever done. It'll be about, hey, how do you build relationships with the government, especially during the times of COVID? So there's a lot of, I've seen the presentation for that. There's a lot of good stuff, tips and tricks in there. Free. You can't pay free.
You can't send them gifts.
Well, that's under what? Well,
some under $25. Some agencies approve. No generous gifts.
Right, but we don't. That's one. We don't even throw that in there. We don't want to get you in trouble. So I think you can actually send a couple little tiny, right, under some dollar amount, depending on what agency they are. But yeah, we don't even start with that. We don't want you to like bribe anybody with gifts. But that can be a thing, though. Gifts can be a thing. But
you want to hear something funny? So I was actually talking to a prospect, a large furniture manufacturer a couple months ago, and he made a comment. I forgot what, something to do with McDonald's. So I was like, oh, he likes McDonald's. So I just decided to send him a $10 gift card to McDonald's and said, hey, buy a couple burgers for the team. And he didn't acknowledge it. And then a couple of days later, we were chatting after they got started. And I said, hey, by the way, did you take the team to McDonald's? He's like, I meant to tell you, we're not allowed to accept gifts. I couldn't accept it because then they might have thought you were trying to bribe me. He said, but I'll just give it to my team. So it was funny.
Who did he work for?
I don't know if I can say.
A furniture company. Yeah, he used it as a spiff then to his team.
Yeah, I mean, it was $10, but
cool.
Yeah, he gave it to his team. So
this is perfect now because apparently the marketing team, their internet connection just busted. So we are stuck in graphics.
I was going to say, everybody's looking really good right now. So more about the webinar, right?
Oh, that is so good. Steve, you want to juggle with the more about the webinar? Look,
of course. No, but yeah, when it comes down to the gifts, that's really important. I've been to a lot of NIGP, especially like chapter meetings, and it's something that's brought up. So anybody out there, it just depends on what you're sending. Like a gift card, like that could be looked at as a bribe. But for instance, one guy, he created chemical that you dump on spills. So it's just like a powder. So it's easy to swipe up or sweep up actually. And then what he did was send out little like trial size packets to all the public works and the maintenance departments with like cities and counties. And that is like an acceptable gift because it's actually testing their product before they use it. And once they use it, turn out to be really good and clean up the spills. So then they would actually purchase it. So it just depends on how you position yourself when you are giving those gifts. Gift cards, that's kind of looked at. But if it falls in line with like one of your products or services that you offer, think outside the box because you want to stand out from your competition. And, just something small goes a long way to, break the mold.
Oh, this is so good. Andre, do you want to throw in another story for another?
Hey,
listen.
I was going to tell stories.
Go ahead. I got one. Go ahead. We're just juggling, waiting for the internet to come back to the marketing team, hopefully in the next minute. Apparently, I'm getting text. Here we go.
Stand by, Ryan. We'll get you on here.
Go ahead, Dre. What's your story?
Well, it's not quite as funny as the McDonald's one, but typically, sometimes I try to help people, especially like if we have an early morning call, if they're in California or something, and I'll send them like a Starbucks gift card, or if they've helped me with a deal, Starbucks or Dunkin'. But most times people are super nice about it. Every now and then you get somebody who's like, oh, why didn't you know that Idaho doesn't have Dunkin', or things like that. But for the most part, people are appreciative.
No good deed goes unpunished.
Mm-hmm.
My story was going to be, I spent the weekend, I actually went to run a half marathon. It was one of the few live events still going on in the marathon world. And so people were here from literally like all over the country because, most of them were now virtual, blah, 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 right here in Melbourne, Florida. I go run it, my niece, that's right, my niece and I. And then literally, so we start out, it's like perfect, like no, not too sunny, not too hot. Literally halfway through the marathon, skies open up. You thought we were doing like one of those training for the military Navy SEALs. Sky starts pouring.
Oh my God.
Then lightning, like we're running, the people on the parade route all start running back in their homes. They're all like starting for cover. True story. I'm like, where are you going? True story. They all run back inside. Then the wind starts blowing. It feels like a freaking hurricane's going to happen. It was crazy.
Oh
And
my gosh.
what's that? And then they did the course where you have to end the course uphill. So no lie, my mile 12, I'm going up over the intercoastal bridge, wind, lightning, and thunder. I felt like I was in like one of those war movies where I was being punked. So that was my weekend. And then it was so bad. Listen, the marathon, if folks have run the whole marathon, it was the same loop twice. And literally they canceled the marathon. So imagine you flew here, we're training for 10 months, and literally mid-race, it's so rare. There you go. So rare. They literally canceled the marathon, and people were, they were. But look. I got
How many have you done now? I actually saw something on Facebook, a picture of a couple of medals. How many?
Yeah. We're just trying to avoid a heart attack. But let's go. Ryan Reisert, get in here, dog. The internet is
Whoa.
Sorry to keep you waiting.
We're here.
Production team, look, we have high-end graphics, but they're still on AOL dial-up. So every once in a while, the dial-up disconnects, and so we lose them. Appreciate you all in the back end making that happen. So Ryan Reisert, literally from Reisert Consulting, founder, has a long history. I'll let him tell you, long history working with software as a service companies out in California doing big things. So Ryan, for the 4 people that may not know you, tell folks a little bit about your background.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. And those were some pretty fun stories. So technical difficulties aside, I was entertained. So yeah, just a little bit about myself. I spent the last, 13 years or so working at fast growth, venture-backed SaaS companies out of the Silicon Valley. Most of the organizations that I've worked for are people you don't know. So my experience all comes from the context of how do you get out and start relationships. So we were talking about that a little bit earlier. How do you get out there and start relationships, build pipeline when you don't have a lot of marketing support, you don't have a lot of dollars to go to events and things like that. You got to do it the old school way, pick up the phone and start conversations. And so as an elder millennial, people think I'm crazy. I love the phone, and I've had a track record of, I guess, decent success helping companies you don't know scale up and get to some sort of exit. And I've had an entrepreneurial bug all along the way as well. I'm not a techie, so unfortunately, my businesses that I build are all on the services side to support high growth tech companies. So I've started was a co-founder of one of the bigger tech sales recruiting firms in San Francisco back in 2010 called The Lions. I was also the co-founder of a company called Inside Sales Bootcamp, where we created a 90-day program to teach kids coming out of school or making a transition in their career to get into tech sales, get the fundamentals so they can go get a job at high growth tech companies when they don't know how to code either, to become that sales development rep, that inside sales rep. I sold that company and wrote a little book called Outbound Sales No Fluff.
You got to do it. I think there's a graphic. I think we have that graphic somewhere. There it is.
There it is. Yeah. So wrote that book. It's funny. It's actually still considered a new sales book of 2021. That came out in 2017, but it's been recognized as one of the best sales books of all time. It's really the fundamentals, the stuff that I taught in the boot camp, just condensed down to about a 30 to 45 minute read. It's got a little guide in the back of it. If you get the paperback, there's now an audio version and a podcast and things like that. You can go to consume the content. But that actually sprung a company I started called The Sales Developers. And that grew, and I exited that last year. And now I'm spending my time really focused on trying to bring all this knowledge to the market and rolling out a service that I call Buckets, which is outlined in that book, which is helping organizations focus on something I call the funnel above the funnel, right? So I think this is the future of this sales development movement. Yeah. And we can talk about that a little bit more if you want to dive in. But that's what I do, where I come from. And, the companies, I'll finish with this, the companies that I've worked with when I'm not doing the entrepreneurial bug have all been or around ad tech, martech. So, programmatic advertising, SEO, pay-per-click, conversion rate optimization, these types of things are the types of organizations that I've worked for. And, my background from school was math. I studied math and engineering. So kind of bringing all those things together, lead generation, digital marketing and sales development, all to this kind of modern sales movement we see ourselves in now.
So that process works no matter who you're selling to, right? And so for our audience, and I think it's amazing, like Ryan's one of the top folks. Hey, how do you start the process? That's always the hardest, right? Sales reps are like, you give me a bunch of good leads, I will crush it. Look at me. Look how good if I just had the right set of leads, right? And so that's the number one thing in all of sales. So can you give folks, what's your top, as you start working with companies or talk to them or, with your current firm, what are the top one or two things you share with them as you start? Hey, how do I start my funnel above the funnel? How do I start finding the folks that are interested in what I'm doing? Well, do you have a place you normally initiate that conversation with them, or the top couple of things you ping them about?
Yeah, there's two things that are kind of fundamental to get an idea of where someone is at in their go-to-market. The first thing is something I call your math of sales. The math of sales is just a way to get a sense of how people, where people are in this journey of understanding, those common ratios. Most salespeople think about ratios. We talked a little bit about sales training ahead of time. So know your ratios. People know that if they've been in sales training, but most salespeople don't really know their numbers. And what I mean by that is, how many activities does it take to get a conversation? How many of those conversations result in second conversations? And then how many of those ultimately become opportunities and pipeline and then close one business, right? So I have got this resource that I've built over the years. They call the Math of Sales. And typically I'm talking to the founder or CEO of a earlier stage, growth stage organization. And I just walk them through, hey, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish from a revenue perspective? What's your average deal value? And from there, we can understand how many deals they need. Okay. Now, when we have that number, what's your close rate? Most of the time, this is where it starts to fall apart. Actually, it can fall apart even just getting a target and an average deal size, but they don't know their close rates. Oh, it depends. It depends. It depends. So I try to get people to realize that it doesn't depend where you are today. Your math of sales is your math of sales. It doesn't depend. There's an average. And based on those averages, we can kind of reverse engineer all the way up to how big your list should be, how many activities you need to be doing, to actually run your funnel. So that's where I start a lot of my conversations. And then that translates into the bucketing process, which is kind of written down, distilled this now into a very simple, actually, it's great that it's here, right? The list is your strategy. So, we're gonna assume once you've done the math of sales, everybody in that list is someone because again, we started with who's your customer, reverse engineer. So at the very top, that list needs to include everybody that you want to be your customer. Yeah. Crazy idea, guys, but crazy idea, but you'd be surprised how many people miss that point, right? The list is your strategy, lo and behold, right? So when you start your funnel, everybody on that list should be equally elated and equally excited if you get them into a conversation as, wow, this could be, I don't know yet, again, it's a hypothesis, but this could be one of my next best customers, right? Yeah. So then you start to do activities, and going back to where I've come from, right? Again, never blessed with inbound leads and all this other stuff. You got to go, you got to use the phone. And most organizations that are in growth mode and scaling and having success, over 90% of their real pipeline is coming from a conversation over the phone, not over cold email and social and all that stuff. There's certain segments where you can start to get traction, right? The channel's super important. It's a simple equation, target message, channel timing, but most of the time it's the phone, and that's where I focus. So this is your strategy. Have conversations with prospects who answer the phone. Crazy idea. Then you also want to know who doesn't. There's two types of people from that list. It's, I've worked for companies and worked with a company called Connect and Sell that does 50, 60, 80 million dials a year across a lot of different segments. So here's a simple truth that I know now. I'm probably analyzing at least, a few 100 million dials. Two types of people: those who answer the phone and those who don't. Yeah. So, that's just the truth. And so have conversations with people who answer the phone, know who doesn't, so that you can follow up accordingly or start an engagement accordingly in the right channel. That's really it, right? And so the bucketing system that I talk about in my book and that I'm rolling out as a service is really about helping people realize the kind of nuances, the stage definitions and exit criteria of how do you take your list and distill it down into these simple principles. But at the end of the day, it's as simple as this: pick up the phone, then follow up. That's really it. Mm-hmm. But that's where I focus most of my energy these days.
Well, that's great. Listen, we say too, Steve will know in GSU, part of reaching out to the government, so much of it is on the phone, right? That's some of that digital marketing and some of the Google stuff works. But if you're not calling the agencies and creating a relationship, it's going to be really, really, really uphill climb. So,
well, and here's the thing, like what most people fail to realize when using the phone is that they think that they have one shot. They think they're Eminem, right? One shot, spaghetti, nervous already, one shot, one opportunity.
Nice,
that's
nice little look. Nice. Like, there you go.
Right? Like that's the problem. They go, oh, I only got one shot. So they spend all this time researching and like trying to figure out the perfect thing to say. They pick up the phone and guess what? Most of the time you're an interruption. Well, all the time you're an interruption. They don't know who the heck you are. And their outcome is they have to get the demo or they have to get the meeting. But the reality is the most important thing that you can figure out on that first call is that this is a phone picker-upper. Remember, and now that they're a phone picker-upper, I can follow up. And the reality is, instead of trying to drive for a meeting as you're and thinking in your head, oh my God, I got to get them in right now. You actually kind of think of it in the lens of, hey, you don't know me. And the only reason I'm reaching out is to introduce myself. Do you have time for a conversation next week? No, what's this about? Well, actually, this is what we do. How's next week look? No, I need to learn a little bit more. Here's where they fail. They keep trying to push. Instead, say, hey, it sounds like I caught you at a bad time. What's the easiest way to get on your calendar? Next week's not a good. You keep kind of going for the meeting until you get to a sense where they are either going to ask the question, right? Okay, what's this really about? Or try to push you off. Now, regardless of the outcome, you now know they're a phone picker-upper. And now what you can do is you can activate other channels. So if they ask for an email, do your little, psychology is in the top of the funnel, I think it's kind of a little bullshit, but sorry if I'm not supposed to use those words on this, but the reality is like, what you want to try to do is like, now I know they're a phone picker-upper. Can I figure out if they're an email opener? Can I figure out if they're a socialer? Can I figure out what channel they're going to start to engage with me? And that's where the digital stuff comes in, right? So you're trying to activate channels, but if you lead with the phone first, you dramatically increase your chances of getting that email to open, to get them to accept your connection request, to whatever other channels you're going to need, to accept your gift. You guys were talking about gifts earlier. Whatever it's going to be, there's now a little bit of relevance, and there's a time equation, just like an inbound lead. Yeah. And so that's what you're doing. Phone first, then follow up, activate where they may continue to engage. And again, just consistently, persistently follow up. And so you go from a phone conversation to automatically being able to send an email, do a connection request, whatever, and you're just building your buckets up. And then over time, you start to activate where that person has a propensity to want to engage with you. They connected, they sent you back a thank you on LinkedIn. Wow, this is a LinkedIner. Now I can follow up on LinkedIn a little bit. But I also know they're a phone picker-upper, so don't forget about that. Right? So those are the things that I try to preach.
In your CM, does it say phone picker-upper, emailer, LinkedIner?
Yeah. So there's a simple, when you're going through, I call it the validation process. It's validated, not validated, but that's really it, right? And then you can do the channel validation. Yeah.
Oh, validation marketing, Steve, queued up for you. Go, Dre.
I have a question about your cold calling. You talked about it a little bit, right? What you kind of want to do, what you don't want to do. But do you have anything like almost like a do's and don'ts list of cold calls? Because I saw on your LinkedIn, you say, hey, I love the cold calling. I don't like the cold emailing. So is there anything that you say, no matter what you're trying to pitch, like this is what you definitely should do and should not do?
I'm not a person of extremes like that, right? So at the end of the day, and we talk about this in the book too, it's like, here's the truth. Some people answer cold calls. Some people answer cold emails. Some people do the cold social. Mm-hmm. Most don't, right? in all those channels in some cases, right? But at the end of the day, most reps will fail because they get into this situation where they focus their time, energy, and effort on the channel that they are comfortable with, and they neglect what their prospect, and this is sales all the way through, what their prospect actually prefers, right? And this is where so many sales methodologies fail as well, because they're trying to create these stage definitions and exit criteria that hold true for what they want to accomplish. I want you to get to a demo. And then after this demo, I want you to get to a trial. And after this trial, I want you to then, look at my proposal and buy. But if you go and look at the buyer's journey, there's a lot of other stuff going on there. And so when it comes to prospecting, if you spend all your time with what you're comfortable with, what you want you to do, and you don't put the buyer in perspective, then you miss out on a tremendous amount of opportunity. So I say it's a lab, right? Now I preach the phone because most people won't, and most people lose out on a tremendous amount of opportunities because they're not still using it. Such a powerful channel. Yeah. The success rate, conversion rates, all those things on the phone are still one of the highest possible once you get to somebody. Mm-hmm. The challenge is no one wants to do the damn work the heavy ass weights, right? They don't want to do the work to get to the phone picker uppers. But if they did that daily over time, they're gonna crush it in sales. It's not that hard once you if you do a good job of focusing on the list being your strategy. It's as simple as go talk to them every quarter, and eventually timing is going to work out. That's just what it's all about. So personally, I hate cold email because it's a bunch of spam, right? So someone could say the same thing with cold calling if you do it incorrectly. You could say it with everything, right? The cold linking, all that stuff. But I just preach the phone because it's the most powerful way to start a conversation. That human to human voice is still the most powerful weapon in sales.
I'm not a phone picker upper. If you're calling me, I'm hours away from the office. You're trying to reach me.
Texter.
Yeah,
if you're a texter, so there's a great example, right?
Yeah.
You find a channel where you engage, and so people do things like you can test the water after maybe Jack. So here's an example: you're not a phone picker upper. I tried you 20 times over 20 days. You never picked up the phone. Maybe what I do now is I leave you a voicemail. I drop you. I say, hey Jack, and you. By the way, you can tell if I have your mobile number or not. Hey Jack, I've tried you a couple times now. I'm going to send you a quick email and a text. Right, in my voicemail, I say that. I'm going to send you a quick email and a text. Just let me know if that's not relevant. And again, I know texting is a little weird, but just tell me if it's off base or whatever. Boom. Yeah. And it can fire that off. If you respond, you respond. Now I know you're a texter. If you don't, I know you don't like texting. If I get blocked, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. So you can do things like that. Those are the things you can start to do.
We should do like a show when you say that. As somebody who gets a lot of voicemails, I would just say as a quick side note, 99 out of 100 voicemails suck. Like I literally take them from people that call me, I record them and I play them for our sales team. They're so bad. It's like you play it, you're like, are you expecting me to call you back from this? Because it's awful. So that's a whole show in itself. We'll give it to that. We'll get to that. So go ahead, Steve. I'll let you go.
No, it's all right, man. Yeah, pleasure, Ryan. Thank you so much for sharing all that knowledge. And I like the Eminem reference you gave, by the way. And all your music references. I was watching the WTF Buckets, earlier. And I was like trying to think of the song. I was like, Tribe Called Quest, and I had to look it up because he's like, you could do this or you could do that. And then I was talking about Black Sheep, so I had to Google it. I'm like, man, my 90s hip hop was off that day. But getting down to it, I would say the first thing, with your formula, right? You're about targeting and the message, then channel and timing. Mm-hmm. I was on your consulting website. So the first part is targeting, and I think that's
Steve's like he's watching you. Look, Steve's like.
No, I think that's the hardest part, right? Is targeting. Like you say, you worked with a bunch of SaaS startup businesses and just trying to figure out who it is. And that's one thing with government education, right? There's 10 million businesses out there. The government buys everything under the sun. And it's just figuring out, who is the target market, right? And that's a question that the board asks the founders and the founders ask the people. And they're like, hey, you talk to everybody, going down the list. But the buck stops like, hey, I talked to a lady that sells lotions and creams. She can sell to the government. I saw over $250,000 in the state of Florida for that product. And I talked to somebody else, and they're like, I'm Jim the pool cleaner, and he can, sell chemicals and clean pools for the cities and counties. And it's just all across the map with no matter what kind of business they're in, the government buys it. So how do you help people drill down their target when the current client base is so vast?
Yeah, so great question. Again, this is a whole lab at all times. So you're always it's an experiment, right? And you're going to use your math of sales to try to figure out what's the most cost-effective way for you to get to a sale. That's what we're trying to solve for, right? The most efficient, most cost-effective way to get to a sale. There's no reason why you would, when you go look at a big market, you got to look at a lot of different things. But is this a customer that actually fits into the definition of, again, going back, reverse engineering? Is this a customer that if I spoke with them, they're going to meet the criteria of my average deal value, right? That's what puts them in the bucket of a customer. If you don't know that yet, or you have a big market, then the easiest way to, and we're talking about outbound versus inbound, by the way, right? When you put a human to go and build this list outbound, you should use signals of folks that you've done business with before already, right? So instead of you guessing, the hand lotion example, wow, we have a hand lotion customer and she's actually a really good customer. Great to work with. The ACV makes sense, or deal value, whatever your metric is in terms, MRR, AR, whatever it is that you're using for that calculation. It all makes sense. How many more hand lotion vendors exist? Go research them. There's your list. And then you have a you have they call it the Beachhead Strategy. Marketing does this all the time. It's Beachhead Strategy. Now you can create a campaign around, hey, I got this. Hopefully you can get a case study from her. You got a customer story, you got a testament. Then you go build that list around that customer story, and you go and kind of the niches, you nail that niche, then riches niches, right?
They go to next niche and keep going.
And then within hand lotions, maybe you start to realize that, oh, well, hand lotions are very similar to I don't know, body sprays. I don't know. So you start to build out your strategy by kind of falling into some of this stuff. But that's where digital becomes really interesting as well, because in the digital side, when you're not putting a human on a list, you can start to send a more broad-based message, which is going to attract people to you. And now your inbound allows you to then to kind of figure out, wow, we got a hand lotion vendor, we got a speaker vendor, we got a some sort of like custom clone glass guy. I don't know. I'm just making shit. Like we got all these people coming to us. Again, you go look at it. What was it like to sell to them? Does it meet our criteria? And when we're working with them, does it look like someone who's going to be our customer the way we want it to be a customer for a long enough period of time? Meets our criteria, great. How many more of them are there, right? And you just kind of continue to repeat that process. And over time, this is where account-based sales and marketing is the new buzzword around this. That's where it all stems from, right? It's, build your list around accounts that look and feel like people that you can do business with. And it informs your content strategy, your messaging, all of that. And it's going to be much more relevant to drive that off of people you've already done business with.
Yep.
If you're a startup and you don't know, it's like, oh, I could sell to everybody. Then just, obviously be intelligent about this, but pick a couple and just test. Yeah. Figure out your math of sales. And again, you're just constantly trying to figure out what's the most cost-effective way to get to our next phase, our next goal, right? And rinse, repeat, right? That's
everybody wants our product. Like that's the most, most founders. Who doesn't want what I'm selling?
Right.
That's it. I appreciate it. No, it makes sense. And I think you said it's also the other side, right? Like the ACV, the MRR, like all those things that happen after the fact, because you get a bunch of customers. But
whoa, what's all that? What are all those acronyms you just threw out there?
Speaking the business language, and it's about people that actually, half the battles, getting them interested in your product and becoming a customer. But then it's like, how long do they stay with you for? MRR, Jack, monthly recurring revenue.
Right,
MRR, right? So. Yeah, just how long they stay with it. And then are those people like really happy with your product? And those are the ones that have the voice to share, with the community and then build on from there. So yeah, I love those tips.
Yeah, for the audience, ATV, annual contract value, right? So that's ACV, sorry. So what's the average? And then you can do TCV, right? TCV, total contract value. And MMR is monthly recurring revenue. In a SaaS business, hey, how many folks are giving you money every single month? And ideally your MRR goes up and to the right if things are going.
Yeah. And then ARR is that annual recurring revenue. So sorry to throw out a bunch of acronyms. And then LTV, lifetime value, which is what Steven's getting to, right? And that's the biggest thing, especially in SaaS. If you're a software as a service business, you want to make sure your CAC, cost to acquire a customer, is no more than, what is it? Your LTV needs to be 3 times your CAC. That's like the equation to make sure you're in good place. So there's an equation you can look at. If it's costing you too much to acquire that customer and you're losing money, your SaaS business doesn't work. So you got to be able to, know, again, your math of sales, understand these metrics, know your numbers so that you can make informed decisions. A customer is not a customer is not a customer, Yep. So it's not all about just getting the money. The future of sales, by the way, is finding the right customers, because it costs a lot more money to go and find and get that customer in the door than it does to just keep your existing customers buying from you over and over and over again.
Yep.
Definitely. So I have a question. So obviously the pandemic has made a lot of what we do more digital, right? Just in terms of social media, a lot of the outside sales folks are doing a lot of cold calling, emailing now. So
what are the outside sales reps? That's another good show. What are traditionally outside reps doing for the last
they're all
months?
inside now.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So my question is more so about social media, because I don't know if you've seen our other shows, but we've had a lot of different talks about social media and how different folks are using it, different tips, different tricks. So how do you feel about social media / LinkedIn specifically, just in terms of using it?
Yeah, so here's an interesting thing about LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a very powerful channel if you're in sales and marketing, right? Because everyone in sales and marketing is on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, like if you want to reach out to Jack, or myself, or probably maybe you guys as well. I'm not sure how active you are on there, but you're probably going to get a response. We're in there. I mean, your show's on LinkedIn Live, right? You're there more often. Yeah. But
top million show.
But but outside of LinkedIn, as a sales or marketer, the app, and I'm taking the stat from somebody who is doing this referral based product. So I haven't validated this, so just take this with a grain of salt. But this is a scary stat for me. He said, guess how much time the average professional outside of sales and marketers spend on LinkedIn every month? How much time do you think they spend on LinkedIn?
Less than 1%.
I was gonna say like 5 minutes.
Every month? Yeah.
What was your guess, Steve?
Yeah, I didn't know it was a time question. I thought less than 1%, because trying to figure out like the number, like they just don't spend a lot of their time.
Steve,
how much time they're spending? How much time are they spending? Yeah.
Well, listen, you got 24 hours in a day, less than 1% of that. So we'll do the math. We'll work backwards, and we'll get down to 2 minutes.
Sorry, Ryan. Here we go.
No. So that was actually a little more harsh. It's 15 minutes, right? It's 15 minutes for an average professional. So what's happening, this is the thing about the sequencers, these guys that want to create these cadences of steps, and this is where my bucketing system also kind of, all these, I'm going to call you, I'm going to email you, I'm going to text you, I'm going to do my social touches. And they're doing that for every single contact. But the reality is most are not there. And so they're spending all their time doing these touches in a place where nothing's received, right? So if your audience is on LinkedIn, then spend time, engaging with them, right? So when I go back to this little equation over here, right? Engage with prospects who are active on social. Yeah. Know who isn't, and follow up accordingly. And so whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Mickey the Mouse Clubhouse or whatever this thing is,
the Clubhouse,
TikTok, wherever your audience is, then if they're there, then spend some time trying to engage them. But if they're not, don't waste your time there, which is like a fundamental, like I always think it's a no-brainer, right? This is your strategy. Find where you can engage and follow up. That's what it is. So now, if you're a rep trying to engage people on social media, the other thing that is also challenging with social is that social in most cases is social. What people are starting to do is try to treat LinkedIn like your inbox, and they just spam you with a bunch of automation and stuff. And so, social can be a very powerful channel, but most people on social are not there to buy from you. They might want to engage. They may want to connect. A lot of tire kickers, right? You don't get a lot of fresh sales. So use it as a content channel, right? Create content, share content, start conversations, engage in conversations, get some familiarity if they're there. Oh, and then what I'll tell you then is pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. And then, there's some relevance there. It's not as quote unquote cold, but take that with a grain of salt. Most people then are saying, I'm going to warm you up. I'm warming you up because I've engaged with you on social. I don't think Jack really cares if we've been connected on LinkedIn when I first call him. Well, first of all, he says he's not going to pick up his phone, but if I call Jack and we've been connected on LinkedIn for some time, but I can't actually help him in any way, shape, or form, it doesn't matter, right? So relevance is the key there. Relevance, right? And timing. So, I think so many people get so caught up on these tips and tricks for opening response rates, all these metrics that don't freaking matter. At the end of the day, social, phone, email, whatever it's going to be, use the channel, engage, and follow up. I mean, that's what it's all about.
I love sticking like how the person communicates. So again, I don't pick up my phone, and right now I have 65,868 unread emails. So those two ways don't work. But if somebody's on LinkedIn, sends me a message, I must always read that, because you get a notification pops up and it's a thing, you know what I mean? Like, so, or somebody texts me. So that's such a true thing. Like, if you could email me and call me all day. Emails just you're throwing your money in the ground. But listen, Ryan, one of the things I want to talk about before we let you go is, I know you do the daily call. I love that. Can you share with folks what that is? The live calls you do every day. I think it's one of the few chances for folks to actually see live. There's so much training and pre-recorded and all this canned stuff. People are like, I made 40 calls. Here's a great one. I recorded it. Everybody listen. But you do live calls every day, right? Every morning. Can you share that with our audience?
Yeah. So last year I was doing it different times of the day. Now this year, what I'm doing is live super cold calls, right? So I'm calling it live cold calling, swallow the toad daily, right? So in an effort to the toad, swallow the toad, right? There's like a book I think on this concept.
Yeah.
I mean, means
I
like
know
do
what
the
you're
thing
talking about.
do the thing you don't want to do
Yeah.
first thing in the morning every day.
Yeah.
Every day. So so I do that every day. The goal there is to encourage people, hopefully over time, those who are not doing their cold calls can join in, make their calls behind it. And I'm in there for an hour. This is a super cold list. And in addition to just having conversations and like just showing that it's not so scary, I'm also taking some time to, kind of share what I'm learning and doing some, feedback, self-coach myself. From time to time, I'll bring in other coaches, right? I've been working on different, bringing in people's scripts and testing them, all sorts of things to try to, educate, bring some entertainment and fun, but also try to, the thing that everyone tells me is that they realize, oh my God, you're just like me, right? You talk about cold calling all day long, but when the reality is you get a kick in the teeth just as often as I do. I guess it's not so scary. You got to develop this kind of tough skin of next and realize that it is, especially at the top of the funnel, it's a numbers game. And so if you put the daily work in today, that kind of 1% gain today over time, it just becomes this, multiplicative exponential growth factor. And it's, if you start cold calling every day, have a couple conversations, you're building your buckets, those follow-up calls become easier and easier. Your connect rates skyrocket. You're in more conversations and your job becomes easier. But just like working out or anything else, you have to start somewhere. And so that's what it's all about. Just encouraging people to come in, ask questions, but listen in on calls. It's just my side that you'll hear because of the privacy stuff, but it's pretty entertaining and people seem to get a kick out of it. It's fun.
So good. Every day, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, right? Every single day. That's amazing.
5 a.m. Pacific, 8 a.m. Eastern. So it's 8 a.m. Eastern.
What time do you wake up every day?
I wake up at 2 a.m.
2?
Yeah, I do.
What time do you go to sleep?
I'm in bed usually by 8.
Okay.
Wow, you live an East Coast lifestyle. Yeah, when you live out West, that's craziness. That's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually had one more question for you, Ryan. I know on your LinkedIn it said serial failure, right? Or something along those lines. And you talked about getting kicked in the teeth, when you're on your phones. And like, was that relating to just cold calling serial failure? Or was that like with businesses? Because I'm sure you learned a lot. They say the more you fail, the more you learn. So I was just wondering, like, what was one of the biggest failures? And, what did you take away from it?
Yeah, so that term comes from, there's a lot of people that call themselves serial entrepreneurs. But, most true entrepreneurs will say that if you're going to tout you're an entrepreneur and you haven't had like one of these massive successful businesses like a Facebook or a Microsoft or a
unicorn,
Tesla or whatever, right? Like, then really you're just a serial failure. And so I'm kind of playing on that. But it's also the fact that, I am a serial failure. I fail every single day, whether it's cold calls, deciding to partner with the wrong people, whatever it might be. I fail daily, but having the mindset that that's a part of the journey. You're never losing. You're either winning or learning. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so that's what it's all about.
Okay.
And so one of my biggest. You said what's one of my biggest failures? Oh man, there's so many. I think one of the more recent ones is my last company, the sales developers, we were, it was right off the back of the book. Rex and I, as a co-founder, we came in thinking it was going to be like a small kind of combined consultancy. We'd come in and do some projects. It would grow fairly, kind of like a lifestyle business, and it blew up so quickly. We ended up taking on a round of investment. It was the first time I personally raised money. My co-founder at the Lions raised a little bit of seed capital way back in the day, but I wasn't involved in that process. So, brought on an investor. We were growing super fast. Brought on his CRO, and all along the way, I was really just kind of like trying to focus on getting things done. And where I failed miserably is actually slowing down. And paying attention to those little things, the things that I preach, and then also a little bit of emotional, what do you call it? emotional intelligence. I really learned that I could run a lot of people over when things are tough. I'm a hard driver. I expect things a certain way. So that company could have been around and still be blowing it up. And I ended up exiting that business due to some conflict, and it's probably one of my bigger failures. So learning from that is slow down before you speed up. Take your time to choose the right partners, but then also words matter. And I'm still getting better at this, but I continue to blow some people up sometimes when things aren't going so well. So I'm working on those things.
We just had that yesterday internal.
Sounds familiar. Yeah, I've heard.
We'll tell that story next week. We had one of those.
You have high expectations. That's what it is, Ryan. You want people to be successful. That's what it comes down to.
That's true. Yeah, I do. And I hold myself to a high level, and I try to encourage that. And I think most people who work with me, who continue to work with me, understand my passion and drive and things like that. But the folks where we've had conflict and it goes another way, I continue to should have been able to do better at some of those relationships. But typically it's a fact that there's a misalignment on, where somebody wants to go. And it usually comes down to work ethic and on, just being upfront and honest about certain things. Those are things that I hold near and dear. And sometimes those things, break, and it's not always because of that they're dishonest. It's just what I understand as a situation is different than when you are. So that's the communication piece I'm working on too.
Near and striking my heart, near and dear to my heart right there. Look, it's just like they always say in basketball, right? The young person that looks great on the court and then they can't make it to the league because they're distracted. Same thing in the business world. You see somebody with a lot of potential and watching them wasted and trying to figure out what's the minimum. What can I get away with today? You're like, I'm just take that somewhere else. Go take that to some big company and get lost. Look, I know. Look, that's how I mean.
Britney Spears quote.
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Which one?
No.
I can't say it out loud, but
his.
Oh, yeah. Work
from the song.
Work beep. Work.
Right.
I got. Look, you also look. You have the Roy Vaden. Success is never owned. It's only rented, and rent is due every day. Right? Roy Vaden. Love him. Happen to be connected with him. So. Love that quote as well. Can you tell folks about quickly? I know we were talking about before the show the SDR, the challenge you're doing, the SDR league. Can you tell folks quickly about that?
Cage battles.
Yeah. Cold Cage 1, right? The SDR league, Cold Cage 1. So this thing spun out earlier this summer. 𝘃𝙗𝙤𝙗 started the concept when I first started doing my live streams on Twitch. We came up with this idea of being able to help empower, educate, and entertain the sales development community. And for those who may not know what sales development is, inside sales, the folks that are doing the cold calling we're talking about, that entry-level sales rep, usually a thankless job, usually a stepping stone into something else. We kind of want to flip the script there through this sales development league by creating, sales athletes, right? So like esports, got B Sports, cold calling competitions. So two folks that are supposed to be experts in their game come together and do a live-to-live cold calling match, a 1-for-1 battle live with, it'll be live on all the channels, Twitch, LinkedIn, so on and so forth. But it'll be similar to this, but instead of us just chatting with each other, we're literally taking calls. There'll be commentation. There'll be, chit talking, all that stuff in between to make it really fun and entertaining. But the league is all about really trying to bring some fun and entertainment and empowerment to the sales development community.
I love that. When's that start?
So the first competition is going to be February 25th. And I'm going to be going against. It's going to be me versus a guy who runs a outsourced sales development firm in Israel. His name's 𝙃𝙖𝙤𝙗𝙤. So we're going to be going 1-to-1 live. Like you said, this isn't going to be canned or scripted. It's literally a cold list. We're going at it with some fun commentation in between, and it should be a lot of fun. That's
so great. We'll put the link to that in the notes. So we'll grab the link and we'll put it in the notes for the GovCast. So Ryan, how can folks reach you? I know we have your book. I know you mentioned your book, so I think we have that graphic. We can put that back up. So if you're looking at a way to develop your sales process, your pre-funnel outbound sales, no fluff, great book. Encourage you to go get it. And then what's the best way, Ryan, for folks to reach out to you as they start the process? And I think every salesperson I've ever known was like, man, how can I get the leads? If you give me the leads, I would crush it. So how do folks reach you? Your phone should blow up with this. How do folks get a hold of you?
Yeah, honestly, my phone number is literally on my LinkedIn profile. So, if you call me, I'm usually on the phone myself or a meeting. So if you call me and you leave a voicemail, I'll call you back. That's my preferred channel. Other than that, what's that?
You're a phone picker upper.
I'm a phone picker upper. That's right. Other than that, connect with me on LinkedIn. I've got the Twitch channel, YouTube channel now that's coming out with all my content. You'll find me online if you look me up. And then if folks, it looks like someone commented about listening to the book. I actually just took the audio book that is published on Audible, and I turned it into a free podcast. So if you go to my website, you can literally listen to the book. There's interviews after each chapter, and then there's some bonus interviews with people who have read the book, and then kind of how they incorporated each chapter into their it's all in a podcast now on the website. So you can check that out there as well.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time. Listen, this process, amazing, especially if you're trying to reach out to the government. All of it is about phone calls. Not all of it. 90% of it's about creating a relationship. The government, our phone picker uppers, promise you, because a lot of inbound stuff, their constituents trying to reach them. And so the government world definitely in this phone part. So if you have issues or some struggles with that, couldn't encourage you more to contact Ryan, reach out to his firm and what he does. It's amazing. Cool. Ryan, any last words for you?
Happy hunting out there. Hey, don't be afraid to pick up the phone, right? Then follow up. Don't forget to follow up. That's what I said. Yeah.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. God bless. Cool. That was great. I think it's like, seriously, like in the gov world, number one, right? Yeah. Call agencies and make them aware. Even listen, if you think you're bothering them, agencies, you may be bothering that moment, but they take the good people that reach out to them. I've lived this side. I started my career on that side. They take it and they put in a file. They're like, oh, one day I'm going to need widgets. Today you're bothering me, but I'm putting you in the widget folder because when I do need widgets, I'm going to pull you out and be like, oh, Billy and Susan called me about widgets. And so I just encourage you to reach out. The phone part, even if they're a little frustrated, government folks are looking always for good vendors all the time. Promise. And we've had some of those folks on the show. If you are not sure, go look at our previous GovCast. You'll see the government folks are like, yep, we're looking for good vendors to do great things, right? All the time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they have so many things to do throughout the day. They don't have time to reach out and do the research on companies. So the only way to get in front of them is to do the inbound. And so many people are scared. They're like, oh, I'm just going to get on a GSA contract and my phone's going to ring and these agencies are going to call me up and just order. No, you still have to let the agency know that you hold a contract, just a way for them to purchase. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions because everybody say, yep, it's just deals are going to happen. But you have to put in the hard work. I think that's what Ryan preaches. And I love that. Swallow the toad, get up 8 o'clock, or he's at 5 a.m. his time.
2 a.m. his time.
Well, he's waking up then at 5 a.m. He's making his first call of the day, right? So how many people out there are picking up the phone at 8 a.m. Eastern, making their calls? Because they say that's the best time to reach decision makers. I think there was like a Harvard study because once 9 o'clock hits, the rest of the office is in, and then boom, the day gets going. You're like, where'd all those hours go? So yeah, find those little pockets of downtime, and 8 to 9 is definitely a good way to get a hold of people at the higher level.
We have to bring him back. Just talk about his schedule, like getting up at 2 a.m. That is
2 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Oh, West Coast. Like some of the stockbrokers and all do that. They go early, but that's early. Like you're cracking 2 a.m. That is some serious stuff. Listen, wrap up as we get short on time. 3 things, right? There is Valentine's Day, right, Dre?
Sunday.
All of you are in love. Make sure you get your significant other something good.
And if you're not in love, you could just get a bottle of wine and watch TV by yourself.
Or if your spouse's birthday is near Valentine's Day, don't try to combine the gifts. Who would do that?
I do have a card here. Can anyone see this?
Yeah, I'm into Fitbit. Fitting every bit of this candy into my mouth.
It's a fat cat. We have a cat named Mia, so I just thought that was a good one.
Steven trying to combine his wife's birthday, trying to combine his birthday.
I got a card.
So you got a card. So Valentine's Day, enjoy it. Next Wednesday, the 17th, we'll be right here at noon. Webinar, how to create relationships with the government. We'll talk about some of the things we did today, how to reach them, calling them, contacting them. Great segue. I missed that during the show. I'm a knucklehead. And then lastly, I want to remind you of the Gov Sales Hall of Fame. So govsaleshalloffame.com. Just want to encourage you. Listen, if you know folks are in the Gov sales arena, either folks that are selling to the government, or listen, companies that help folks sell to the government. There's a ton of support contractors out there. There's nominations for all three: government sales professionals, vendors, the gov sales support role, and then we have a Lifetime Achievement Award for folks that have been doing that for a long period of time. And I think in all the categories, there's literally, I want to say tens. I don't know if we have hundreds, but there's literally tens of nominees. So I think we have 1,000+ nominees in total, but each category has certainly over, I think, 50, 60, 70 nominees. So amazing process. So it's free. Listen, the only thing we mentioned is we're just trying to promote and acknowledge what folks are doing out there, particularly during the COVID work from home process. It's totally free. So go online, nominate somebody you know and love, and maybe they'll get a big fat trophy and some press and big thing our marketing team's creating. So they'll be superstars in the Gov Sales world. Inaugural class, Gov Sales.
It's gratitude. Better to give than receive, right? So if you know someone out there doing good things, let us know their name and we will put them in the running.
Amen. Look, people do look. Can I nominate myself? We get that. That's it. Dre, any last words besides Valentine's Day love?
No. Next week will be good. I'm excited to talk about that. The relationship building.
For those of you who don't know, Dre's engaged. We'll see how her fiance did on Valentine's Day. A lot of pressure. Stevie B, any last words? You want to tell us how Valentine's Day birthday combo goes?
Yeah, it's going to go great because love is where it's at. All right. So as long as you got love, you can survive anything. It's not about material possessions. Just say, I love you to your other significant other and family and friends.
Listen, really quick, totally random story. You said that. Listen, I'm hooked right now on TV. Like Nat Geo has this thing, like people that live in Alaska. It's called, I think, Above Zero or Below Zero.
Oh yeah, great show.
It's crazy. Like all these people, it's like 300 years ago, and everything you do, you have to do yourself. Right? There's nobody around. Yeah. You got to kill your own stuff. You got to heat your own thing. Something happens. Yeah. It's solo time. But they're all alone. Almost all of them are alone. And you're like, I watch that show. Like I'm sucked in now. Last night were new episodes. I'm totally sucked in. But they're all alone. And you're like, doesn't this go against everything? Like it's so crazy. But if you'd like to be alone, head up to Alaska. A lot of lonely people up there doing their thing. All right. God bless. Thank you all so much. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week for the webinar right here. Noon. Go register. See you next week. Woo! Building relationships.